Every producer in Lagos knows the golden rule. The beat is everything. But when Shina inherits his grandfather's talking drum, he discovers some rhythms were meant to stay silent. Now, every time it plays, the drum doesn't just make music, it releases the trapped souls of his ancestors, one agonizing beat at a time. They've been waiting decades to tell their story, and they won't let him stop playing until he listens. The question is, will he survive long enough to hear what they are trying to say? The relentless morning rain hammered against the corrugated iron roof of Shina's small, Mushin apartment, a sound that felt like it was mocking him. He stared at the ancient talking drum leaning against his bedroom wall. Just 3 days had passed since his grandfather had been laid to rest, and in that short time, this drum, wrapped in faded red cloth and adorned with cowrie shells, had started calling to him in ways that made no sense. It was a subtle whisper at first, then a deeper thrum, growing into a demanding pulse that defied all logic. Shina's fingers, usually quick and precise on electronic music machines, now trembled as they touched the weathered cowhide surface. He felt the intricate carvings that were twisted around the drum's wooden body. His grandfather, Baba Adebayo, had been the last traditional drummer in their family. He was a master whose rhythms had flowed through ceremonies and festivals all over Lagos until his hands gave out from old age. Now at 19, Shina felt the heavy expectation. He was supposed to take over this legacy, but his heart thumped to the exciting modern beat of Afrobeats studios in Victoria Island, not the old rhythms of his family. My son, you can't keep running from this, his mother Folake said from the doorway. Her voice sounded heavy, like she hadn't slept well in days. She adjusted her colorful head wrap, and her presence filled the small room with the comforting smell of palm kernel oil and the quiet weight of her worries. The elders are asking questions. They want to know if you will take on your grandfather's role. Shina sighed, his eyes still fixed on the drum. In the studio, it was a burst of energy, his hands flying across samplers and synthesizers with the skill of a surgeon. But this instrument, this old piece of the past, felt like a heavy chain tying him to expectations he never chose. I'm not ready, Mama, he murmured, feeling a strange tightness in his chest as he spoke. As if in response, the drum seemed to subtly shift, its surface dripping like water disturbed by an unseen stone. Folake's face softened. She had married into the Adebayo family, but she understood the weight of tradition better than most. If you want to climb a very tall tree, you can't use only your head, she whispered, using an old saying. Some things need more than just your desires, my son. They need all of you. Later that evening, as Lagos settled into its familiar sounds of humming generators, impatient car horns, and distant throbbing music, Shina found himself alone with the drum. The rain had stopped, leaving the air thick and humid, hinting at small storms to come. He tried to focus on his laptop, working on a new song for his producer friend in Surulere. But the drum's presence filled the room, a silent, patient hunter. Finally, the pull became too strong to resist. Shina lifted the drum. The moment his palms touched the cool aged cowhide, his words seemed to tilt. The sound that came out was nothing like the intricate rhythms his grandfather had played. This was deeper, more raw, a low booming heartbeat that seemed to echo from the very ground beneath them. As his hands, guided by an unknown force, moved across the drum's surface, following patterns that felt both foreign and strangely familiar, quiet voices began to unwind from inside the instrument. Come to us, they called. Wabawa. Shina's hands moved faster now, the rhythm and insistent current pulling him deeper into a trance he couldn't break. The whispers became clear, distant voices, growing stronger, more demanding. And then he recognized them. His grandfather's voice, yes, but others too. Older voices, voices that carried the immense weight of generations. Our son, his grandfather's spirit spoke, seeming to come from within the drum itself, his voice echoing, "You have awakened us at last." The small apartment began to fade, blurring at the edges as the drum beats carried Shina away. Not to a dream, but to a different Lagos, one where ancient Iroko trees once stood, where tall buildings now scrape the sky. A Lagos where the spirits of old Yoruba kings held silent court under stars that weren't hidden by city lights. But this was no peaceful place. The voices that now poured from the drum carried deep sadness, anger, a desperate consuming hunger that made Shina's skin feel cold and prickly. "We have been trapped," another voice joined the chorus, a woman's voice, ancient and sharp with bitterness. "Trapped in this instrument, while the world forgets our songs, our stories, that we even existed." Shina tried to pull his hands away, but they wouldn't obey. The rhythm had become a living, breathing thing, controlling him just like the spirits controlled the drum. Around him, the ghostly shapes of his ancestors began to appear. Dozens of them, their faces a mix of pain from centuries ago. "Each beat feeds us," his grandfather's spirit continued. But now his voice had a cruel edge Shina had never heard when he was alive. "Each rhythm gives us strength to taste the world of the living once more." The apartment snapped back into focus, but it was changed. The walls seemed to vibrate with the drum's throbbing rhythm, and shadows moved on their own, separate from their sources. Shina's hands were raw and bleeding from playing so intensely, yet he couldn't stop. The spirit demanded what they wanted, and the drum was their hungry vessel. "You cannot abandon us," the ancient woman's voice hissed, a chilling whisper in his ear. "We are your blood, your history. To stop the rhythm is to lock us away forever." But Shina could see, truly see what was happening. Each beat wasn't just feeding the spirit, it was weakening the very boundary between the living and the dead. Through the window, he glimpsed other people in his building, moving stiffly, their eyes reflecting the same ghostly, hungry lights that now came from the drum. "This is not what grandfather would have wanted," Shina gasped, his voice barely heard over the thunderous drumming. He respected tradition, yes, but not if it hurt the living. The spirit's ghostly forms flickered with furious rage, and the drum's surface began to crack under the strength of their anger. "Rude child!" they shrieked together, their voices a messy mix of fury. "How dare you judge your own ancestors?" But in that moment of desperate resistance, Shina found the strength. Even as his hands kept playing the drum on their own, he began to speak. Not the praise songs, not the traditional verses, but something new. Something that connected the frightening gap between past and present. "I honor you," he said, his voice growing stronger with each word, each beat of the drum. "I honor your struggles, your wisdom, your sacrifices, but I will not let you destroy the living to ease your own pain." The rhythm of the drum began to subtly shift, becoming less wild, more purposeful. Shina was no longer a prisoner of the drum. He was its master. He was guiding the spirit desperate energy into something new, something that promised healing instead of destruction. "There is another way," he continued, his bleeding hands now moving carefully and with clear intention. "Let me carry your stories into modern world. Let me mix the old rhythms with the new, so your voices are not stuck in this drum, but live in music that touches thousands of hearts." The spirit's form began to soften, their sadness slowly turning into something like hope. His grandfather's spirit stepped forward, and for a brief moment, Shina saw the kind man he had known in life, not the tortured spirit the drum had made him become. "You will do this?" his grandfather asked, his voice softer, filled with surprise. He will carry our burden willingly. Shina nodded, understanding now that tradition wasn't a chain holding him back, but a powerful river that could flow through him into new unexpected places. I will not forget you, he promised, his voice firm, but I will not let you forget the living either. The drum's rhythm swelled to a final deep peak, and then, with a sound like distant thunder, rolling across the Lagos lagoon, it stopped. The spirit's forms began to fade away, not like they were defeated, but like they were being set free. They weren't gone, but changed, their essence now part of Shino, no longer trapped inside the instrument. When dawn broke, painting the motion sky in shades of orange and purple, Shino sat in his apartment. The drum, silent as still beside him, seemed to give off a peaceful warmth. His hands were wrapped in bandages, aching, but his heart felt strangely light. He reached for his laptop and began to work, mixing the old rhythms he had learned with the modern music he loved. The music that came out was neither purely traditional nor purely contemporary. It was something new, something alive. 3 weeks later, Shina stood on the stage of the new African shrine. His talking drum was placed next to a shining collection of electronic music equipment. The crowd was a vibrant mix of young and old people from Lagos, all drawn by whispers of a young drummer who had found a way to make the ancestors dance to modern music. As he began to play, the strong voice of the drum joined the electronic music, and a powerful energy surged through the speakers. The stories of his ancestors, carried on the wings of his new sound, were finally free to touch the heart of a new generation. In the audience, an old woman smiled, a flicker of recognition in her eyes as she heard a rhythm that her own grandfather had played many years ago. Next to her, a young person swayed, moving to beats that spoke to both their roots and their dreams. The song ended with loud applause, but Shina barely heard it. He was listening to something else, a soft, satisfied whisper from the drum that sounded just like his grandfather's voice. My son, you have done well. As the crowd left and the venue slowly emptied, Shina carefully packed his things. The drum felt lighter now, its ancient burden shared, not carried alone. He was about to leave when a young woman came up to him. She looked about his age, with a quiet confidence that hinted at experiences beyond her years. That was beautiful, she said, her voice with a slight accent he couldn't quite place. I'm Amara. I've been following your music since you started performing. Shina smiled, noticing the intricate silver bracelet on her wrist. It looked old, possibly ancient, and seemed to catch the light in a strange, almost magical way. Thank you. Are you a musician too? Amara's smile was mysterious. Something like that. I have a story to tell, and I think you might be the one to help me tell it. My family has its own traditions. From the east, she gestured softly towards the drum, and I suspect we might have more in common than you think. As they walked out into the active Lagos night, Shina felt the drum pulse once against his back, not with the desperate hunger of trapped spirit, but with the steady affirming rhythm of a heart that had found its true purpose. Whatever story Amara carried, whatever traditions she represented, he sensed that his journey of bringing the old and the new together had only just begun. The last beat of his grandfather's drum had become the first beat of something completely new, a rhythm that would carry the voices of the ancestors into a future they could never have imagined, but would have been immensely proud to see. Behind them, the lively shadows of Lagos seemed to whisper, with the voices of the departed, no longer trapped, but finally beautifully free. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe for more.